That shit. Hold on. I got to start the motherfucking record over again. Wait a minute. Fuck that shit. Still on this motherfucking record. I'ma play this motherfucker for y'all. Hey, y'all get some more drinks going on. I sound a whole lot better.
Listen, see you got ritualistic, cleansing my soul of addiction for now, 'cause I'm falling apart. Yep, tension between us just like picket fences. You got issues that I won't mention for now, 'cause we're falling apart. Passionate from miles away, passive with the things you say, passing up on my always. I can't blame you, no. No. Passionate from miles away, passive with the things you say, passing up on my always. I can't blame you, no. No. Listen, harder building trust from a distance. I think we should rule out commitment for now, 'cause we're falling apart. Leaving, you're just doing that to get even. Don't pick up the pieces, just leave it for now. They keep falling apart. Passionate from miles away, passive with the things you say, passing up on my always. I can't blame you, no. Passionate from miles away, passive with the things you say, passing up on my always. I can't blame you, no. No.
Trying to think of the right thing to say.
I should've stayed at home, 'cause right now I see all these people that love me, but I still feel alone. Can't help but check my phone. I could've made you mine, but no, it wasn't meant to be. And see, I wasn't made for you, and you weren't made for me, though it seems so easy. And that's because I wanna be your favorite boy. I wanna wanna be the one that makes your day, the one you think about as you lie awake. I can't wait to be your number one. I'll be your biggest fan and you'll be mine, but I still wanna break your heart and make you cry. But won't you wait? You know it's too late. I'm on my own shit now. Let me tell you how it feels to be fucking great. I feel great. Whoa, you need to be yourself. Love someone for loving you instead of someone really cool that makes your heart melt. Who knows what you truly felt? You're still my favorite girl. You better trust me when I tell you there ain't no one else more beautiful in this damn world. In this damn world. You're gonna wanna be my best friend, baby. You're gonna wanna be my best friend. I said that. You're gonna wanna be my best friend, baby. You're gonna wanna be my best friend. Best friend. You're gonna wanna be my best friend, baby. You're gonna wanna be my best friend. Best friend. You're gonna wanna be my best friend, baby. You're gonna wanna be my best friend. I say that I'm happy. I say that I'm happy, but no, 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 no. I still wanna be your favorite boy. I wanna be the one that makes your day, the one you think about as you lie awake. And I can't wait to be your number one. I'll be your biggest fan and you'll be mine, but I still wanna break your heart and make you cry. I still wanna be your favorite boy. I wanna be the one. I might just be the one.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the 3-in-1 Taxation Study Program. My name is Jessica Mitalela Pardede, and it's truly an honor for me to be a Master of Ceremonies for this prestigious event. 3-in-1 is a program of visiting professor and practitioner lectures organized by the Taxation Study Program, Faculty of Administration, Brawijaya University. This time, the 3-in-1 program raised the theme, Enhancing Cooperative Tax Compliance. For today's agenda, we will discuss the topic of contemporary issues, improvising cooperative tax compliance, education, and awareness. Before we start the event, I would like to remind our participants to fill in the attendance link provided by the committee in the Zoom. We also like to remind our participants to rename their Zoom according to the instruction and turn on their camera. Okay, we will enter documentation session before. We ask our participants to activate their cameras and using the virtual background. Once again, we ask our participants to activate their cameras and using the virtual background. I will guide for the documentation session to the IT team. Please to capture the picture. I will count in 3, 2, 1. Once again, in 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you for the IT team. All right, without further ado, let's move to the next agenda. Today, we will discuss about contemporary issues, improvising cooperative tax compliance, education, and awareness, which will be moderated by Mrs. Nurlita Sukma Alfandia, SAMA. Before that, I would like to give a brief introduction to our next moderator. Mrs. Nurlita Sukma is highly knowledgeable lecturer in the field of international taxation, transfer pricing, international business, and accounting finance. Nurlita has not only excellence in teaching these subjects, but also made a significant contribution to the academic world by publishing a book on international tax. For educational experience, from 2006 until 2010, Bachelor of Accounting, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Airlangga, and from 2010 until 2012, Master of Accounting, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Airlangga. So that's a brief introduction of our moderator. Now I would like to invite Mrs. Nurlita to take over the event. To Mrs. Nurlita, the time is yours.
Thank you, Jessica. Is my voice clear?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today, we will learn about improving cooperative tax compliance, education, and awareness with Mr. Bobby Savero and Mr. Yunianto Kurniawan. Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Yunianto.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, I will read Mr. Bobby's CV. Mr. Bobby has over 14 years of experience as the Director General of. While working at DGT, he was responsible for supervising strategic and prominent taxpayer in West Tangerang. He is also an international tax specialist responsible for resolving international tax mutual agreement procedure and analyzing pricing agreement case. In 2021, he obtained the IT certification from IBFD. From 2018 until 2021, Mr. Bobby as Senior Analyst Advanced Pricing Agreement, the Mutual Agreement Procedures, Directorate of International Taxation for Dispute, Prevention and Settlements, Directorate of International Taxation DPT, 2021 until 2022 as Accounting Representative, West Tangerang Tax Office, DPT, and 2022 until present as Transfer Pricing and International Tax Manager. Okay. Okay, we start now, Mr. Bobby.
Sure, we can.
Okay, time is yours.
Thank you, Bu Nurlita. Thank you, everybody. Firstly, I would like to say that this is an honor for me personally, and also an honor for Tax Prime to be invited to this event. I think this is a very great opportunity for us to share whatever we have in mind with regard to the cooperative tax compliance. This is a very important issue, and I think this topic has been smartly chosen by Brawijaya University to encourage the taxpayers' compliance in the future. So I will start, Bu Nurlita, if it's okay. Okay, so I will share my screen. Okay, I think this one. Okay, is my screen has been shared clearly? Okay. Yes. Okay, then I will start. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, everybody. My name is Bobby Savero. I'm an international tax and transfer pricing manager at Tax Prime currently since 2022. Later in the presentation, my team member, the supervisor, Mr. Yunianto Kurniawan, will help me to dispatch some information based on his short research with regard to the issue. But I know that the main idea and main topic of this session is basically the practical ideas, or what is the practical things that we could contribute to enhance the cooperative tax compliance, especially in Indonesia. That's why I think we will elaborate further in the question and answer session later in the end of the session, I think. So I believe this is very clear, but let me emphasize why compliance is very important with regard to taxation. So this is the annual report of Directorate General of Taxes, taken directly from their official website. So we can see here on the left, this is the total tax revenue in 2021. So this is the latest annual report that I can get. So basically, Indonesia has generated from taxation, it's around 1,278 trillion rupiah, right? So I just want to highlight why compliance is important, because then in the same annual report, we can see that the income that is generated by law enforcement activities, so it's not compliance per se, it's a law enforcement activities, is only on the bottom side 60.6 trillion, and from the debt collection activities is 19.60 trillion. So basically, if you compare it to the magnitude of the tax revenue, it only reaches around 6 to until maximum 7% of tax revenue per year. So what, and then if we see again in the audit coverage ratio on the right side of the slide, we can see the audit coverage ratio in Indonesia right now is only 0.86%. The audit coverage ratio basically is a ratio that comparing the number of taxpayers that is audited with the number of taxpayers who actually submitted tax return. So you can imagine how little, how minimum, how minor it is, the number that the DGT with their 40,000 employees to actually cover the issue, to actually cover those taxpayers to be audited. And the income that coming from it is only generated around 6% of revenue. So where is the rest are coming? Exactly. Without hearing your answer, I know the answer is from the compliance side. So basically the taxpayers voluntarily submitted tax return, calculating their tax, because we know under the Article 12 of our income, our general procedure of tax said that taxpayer basically do calculate the taxes themselves and then report it, and then the DGT, if they find a mistake, then they could actually make an adjustment. But our tax system, as we already know, I think this is actually a self-assessment system. So this is very clear from the annual report of DGT that only around 6% of the revenue coming from the law enforcement activities directly, but the rest of it is basically coming from compliance. That I think is a very important piece of fact that could highlight why the compliance side is very important for the Director General of Taxes, for the taxpayer, and at the end of the day, for the good of our country. So let me continue. Okay. So what is the cooperative tax compliance? I think the other speakers must have explained about this, but for the sake of our smooth transition of the discussion, I will just touch upon some very high level things with regard to cooperative compliance. So basically, it has been brought to the tax communities all over the world that compliance is very important. And that's why in 2008, the OECD released a report of study into the role of tax intermediaries, which suggests that for the purpose of tax increasing tax revenue smoothly, there has to be an enhanced relationship between the tax authority and the large corporate taxpayer. So basically, they have to work together better. That's the idea. And then after 5 years of that recommendation, they try to get back to the issue, and then they find that okay, the enhanced relationship is still in principle is right, is correct, but there must be something that needs to be clarified. Among the others, one of the suggestion that they make is to change the terminology of enhanced relationship to cooperative compliance. What is it? I will explain later. And then in 2016 and later, they realized that one of the important piece of cooperative tax compliance right now is actually the tax control framework. What is the tax control framework? The tax control framework is basically a mechanism that could make the taxpayer provide correct information to the tax authority, so that the tax authority could do the assessment as early as possible to ensure that they pay the right amount of tax. Basically, that's the tax control framework. So what is the difference between enhanced relationship and cooperative compliance? Well, let me just repeat it for you, because I believe the other speakers already talked about this. The enhanced relationship coming from the realization that there must be a good cooperation between taxpayers and large taxpayers especially, and taxpayers in general, and with tax authorities. But later in their findings in 2013, the OECD, which was sponsored by the sponsoring commissioner of NTCA from the Netherlands, says that okay, but people could think that this is some kind of a better treatment, a discriminative better treatment. So basically, the large taxpayers could get easier access. The large taxpayers could get, well, more flexible arrangement and something like that. That is what actually taken and interpreted by the terminology of enhanced relationship. That is why in 2013, and the report, they suggested to change the term enhanced relationship to the cooperative compliance. So the commissioner of the NTCA, as the sponsoring commissioner of the report, actually received so many recommendations. And then consensually, they agreed to take the cooperative compliance term, because basically it actually shows what the terminology means, which is the good cooperation between tax administration and also the taxpayers, and also giving the goal of the program, or the goal of the concept, which is to reach a compliance stage. So basically that. And what is needed to be highlighted is the cooperative compliance. Basically, the goal of it is giving a compliance stage to the taxpayer, leading to the payment of the right amount of tax at the right time. So basically, it is fairness. So taxpayer could only pay the right amount of tax that they actually has to pay based on the regulation at the right amount at the right time. So basically, it's fairness. There's a law, they have to obey it, they obey it. That's compliance, and that is the goal of cooperative compliance. So what is the concept? If you want to define the concept of cooperative compliance elaborately, well, I think it's already clear, but let me try to highlight it piece by piece. So basically, it is building the relationship of trust, to foster the relationship of trust. So I will tell you the real stories from my experience. Well, I work for the DGT for around 15 years. So from that experience, like most of the time, I have this. Sorry. So most of my 15 years time, that I have something in mind that the taxpayers must be doing something wrong. I have something in mind that no, the tax consultant must have hide some information, that so we cannot get the correct amount of tax that they need to pay. There's always suspicion like that most of the time. Until one time I met this specific tax consultant, which represent this taxpayer, who actually built a very good relationship. They are very open, so they actually work for the taxpayer, but they could help not only the taxpayer, but they also help us, the DGT at that time, to actually know the truth of the taxpayers. And that is, for me at a time, it was very different and very surprising, because before I've never met such a consultant. So that's why the relationship of trust most of the time are quite questionable. And then when I took my degree in the Netherlands, in the Leiden University, there is a session with the Netherlands Competent Tax Authority. She told me that to conclude an advanced pricing agreement. So advanced pricing agreement, I will explain it very later in this presentation. But this is actually a program that tries to make taxpayer and tax authority to agree on something, and then they will comply to that agreement. In Indonesia, you can go through the regulation, but it takes around 24 months to get it done. But for the Netherlands Competent Tax Authority told me that for them, it's only 2 meetings. So the first meeting is like the kickoff meeting. They tell the stories, they tell the information, and then the second one is the negotiation, and then they get it done, just only with 2 meetings. I couldn't imagine at that time how they can do it, because this is practically impossible in Indonesia. The DGT simply doesn't trust us in the first instance. They ask many questions and really go to the deep of the truth. But in the Netherlands, it's like just 2 meetings and it's done. Very efficient. So it's very low. So the taxpayers bore a very low cost to get the certainty done. I never thought that that could be happening in Indonesia at that time, because it's very difficult to trust the taxpayers at that time. That's my personal experience. But then until I met this specific consultant and the specific taxpayer, then I find that, okay, they're actually taxpayers and tax consultants who actually can make the cooperative compliance happen, but there must be openness and transparency. So let's get back to its theory. So in principle, the tax administration has to rely that the taxpayers give the information with relevant facts and circumstances. So the basic assumption is if the taxpayer gives information, then the tax administration will treat the information as if that this is the truth. And then, based on the information that is provided to the taxpayer, the tax administration will provide interpretation and application of the tax legislation, which is fair and objective based on the regulation and based on the facts and circumstances that is actually being given to them by the taxpayer. So basically, it really creates efficiency. Why? Because there must be reduced number of debates, reduced number of disputes, which takes a long time in Indonesia. As you know, there is like objection process, there is an appeal process, and if you don't really satisfied with that, you can go to the next step to the Supreme Court, and it will take like 5 to 7 years. It takes a long time. So if there is actually a trust between the tax authority and the taxpayer, that could actually make everything much more efficient. And what is the benefit of the cooperative tax compliance? Of course, the enhanced relationship, because the openness and transparency, tax administration doesn't have to try to find anything other than what already being given by the taxpayer. So it's very simple, but the taxpayer also has the obligation to provide open and transparent information, so they don't hide any information. So basically, based on that trust, the tax authority could decide what they need to do based on the regulation, based on the information that already being provided. And then the second benefit that could be gotten is the understanding of the business. This is very important. From the experience that I had in the tax authority, one of the most important piece of activities is to understand the business. Because if you understand the business, you will know where is the tax risk actually is. So you don't have to just waste your resources to go to whatever places in the taxpayer, but you go directly to, okay, this has a little bit more risk, then I will focus on this. And this is also important in creating the regulation. If you remember, so right now we have a debt equity ratio regulation, the minister regulation of 169. Do you know that the income tax law, actually has hinted this regulation for like 20 years back, very long time. But why is this regulation just issued just a few years ago or 5 years ago? Why? Because there was a regulation before that is actually talking about debt to equity ratio, but then it's being repelled in a very short time because the industry cannot take it. Because they simply say that if this regulation is implemented, then it's the same like closing down the businesses. That is what can we get if we can provide the cooperative compliance. If we have good cooperation with taxpayers, we understand their businesses. If we understand their businesses, then the tax administration could actually make regulation that is realistic, that is considering the difficulties of the business. So they then make a regulation that, okay, I don't care about you, I just want you to pay tax, and this is the regulation. No, I don't say that they do that, no, but with the understanding of the business, they could make the regulation as close as possible to the realistic situation and condition of taxpayers of the business. And then also, another benefit would be the risk management. So the taxpayer could the tax administration could map the risks, and then they could allocate resources efficiently. As I already explained in early of my presentation, we only have 0.86% audit coverage ratio, while we have like thousands of auditors and account representatives. So that means We have like almost 300 million people. We have millions of companies. We only have like 40,000 DGT employees. So we have to do the risk management, and then we have to allocate resources efficiently. So then the DGT could encourage the increase of tax revenue in an efficient manner. And then another benefit would be for the businesses, of course, because I have dealt with so many clients, and also when I was in DGT, and now when I am as operating as consultant, to the contrary of my assumption before, that the taxpayers mostly are trying to avoid taxes, there are to the contrary to that assumption, I found that there are actually so many taxpayers that do really want to comply, but they just don't know how to do that. And most importantly, if we are talking about investment, they want certainty in advance. They want to know how much taxes that they need to pay, how much taxes that they will be withheld if they disburse some profit from Indonesia back to their country, and many other things. So basically, sometimes they even said that I don't need many tax facilities or incentives, but please ensure that I know exactly how much that I should pay in taxation. Why? Because they could then plan their businesses efficiently, effectively, and profitably. Without that, it would be like going to the jungle without any proper weapon, and then you don't know who will you meet in the jungle. Maybe you meet just rabbit, so it's okay. Maybe you meet like a small bear, that's still okay. But maybe another time you will meet the lion, and then you will be dead. We do not know. It's simply a jungle. So for the investment side of the investors, basically they want certainty in advance. How much I should pay? Okay, tax incentive, tax facility is good, but certainty is really actually what they want to know. And then the other benefits is, of course, because if the tax administration and taxpayer actually make a good connection, they will get like instant feedback of whatever they need to have, like information, so they can update the tax code, they can update the tax regulation, they can update the tax guidance and anything. And then reputation. Okay, this is very important. I was working at the DGT when I don't like to say this name, but for blatant purpose that I would just say, I was working at the DGT when Gayus Tambunan case was exploding, and as an employee of DGT, who I believe I try to hold the moral values, I was the victim of bad reputation that is very close to DGT at that time because of that case. And reputation is very important in our work because it actually hampers our personal lives and our personal relationship, and of course it will influence our professional work, because because I remember at that time I tried to work within the platform, but many taxpayers are thinking that I actually want to, well, I wanted to do the hanky-panky or any other things, and that's really actually very annoying for DGT employees who actually hold their moral values. So by establishing good relation with the taxpayers could actually know, okay, the DGT is actually a very good institution. Actually, by my personal experience and comment, DGT is one of the most advanced institution in Indonesia with regard to reform. So I believe, even though the reputation out there may be different, but I know exactly from inside it is one of the most advanced reform institution in Indonesia, and that is the value that we have to dispatch to the world. And then, of course, another benefit will be the effective allocation of resources. I already touched upon this issue before. And for the taxpayer, of course, if they could, if the tax administration and taxpayer could make this comparative compliance accompanied by the tax control framework, which is actually making everything is more real time, and then the data could be taken easily, and then they could ensure that the tax return is actually reflecting the correct numbers. So there will be less and less administrative burdens. And for them, that means, for the businesses, for the taxpayers, it means efficiency. Efficiency means profit. Profits mean tax. So at the end of the day, it will bring more tax to the table. Well, then I will just highlight. So if the cooperative compliance is that good, why is it difficult? And what we should do to actually accomplish a cooperative tax compliance program in Indonesia? Well, there are challenges. After this, my colleague Anto will continue the presentation with regard to how to address the challenges. But for it to be done, there are challenges. So of course, the first one will be the communication challenges. Well, if you at first, for example, DGT has never established the good relation, then the taxpayer will actually like I'm suspecting then if I join this program, then I will be audited more. I will be under scrutiny more. There must be some doubt and suspicion to that issue. And then for the taxpayers who actually cannot join the program, they maybe could think that so they get better tax treatment than me. Why? Because I'm not a large taxpayer or so. So the communicating part is very important in this program. And then the cultural issues. Yes, I believe the DGT has left cultural issues that is challenging. Now they are much more a modern institution, a very good one. But of course, there must be challenges to establish what could be established between tax administration and taxpayers. Because in the reform, there is an inclination that the tax administration should reduce the amount of time they meet with the taxpayers. Well, technically that may be good. They want to avoid negotiation, but the problem with not actually meeting with taxpayers is the trust simply is difficult to be built. If you cannot meet the taxpayers, if you just only talk to them through phone call or letters, the trust is actually very difficult to build. I don't say that this is impossible, but basically this will be very difficult. Okay. And then the next challenge would be there must be a tax control framework. So both taxpayers and tax authorities need to invest to a tool, to a system, to a mechanism, to an expertise to ensure that the taxpayers could in advance provide real-time and correct information, so they could rely on the submitted tax return. And on the other side, the DGT as a tax authority will have the trust that the tax return is already correct, so they don't need to do many things on that. So they could concentrate on the non-compliance taxpayers. And then level of contact, I already touched upon this. And then also, of course, if the cooperative tax compliance already established, the next challenge would be what is the metrics to measure whether this program is successful or not. If in the past the metrics would be, okay, this is the tax that you should pay, this is the tax that you shouldn't pay, this is the tax that you didn't pay. The metric would be, okay, the real time provision of the data or many other things. So there must be like a KPI to show that, okay, this program is actually done very good. They could actually trust this program. They could actually trust. So I think my colleague Anto will continue from this point, and I will get back to you before the end of the presentation to continue with the implementation of cooperative tax compliance in Indonesia. Please, Anto.
Thank you for the time, Pak Bobby. Let me share my screen. Can you hear me or see my screen?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
How
Okay,
about right
now
now?
we can see.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Mhm. Let's see.
Okay, we can see. Thank you, sir.
So hopefully right now you have an idea regarding the cooperative compliance. Also, you have know what is the challenge there, and also the hurdle that the taxpayer and the tax authority face, right? So one of the suggestion in the report from the OECD in 2016 is in order to build trust or bridging the trust is to create internal control. They specifically the uh, tax uh, the tax control framework, right? So the purpose is like you build a good corporate governance. It's not about the output, right? But it's all about the process. Remember, there is what uh, the idea of this is to build trust and open and transparency. So the first of all, in the taxpayer side, you have to know about uh, the tax strategy to to ensure that the tax authority that the taxpayer is not aggressively taking the advantage of the tax position. So in order to do that, so the DGT have to know, or the tax authority has to know who take what is the strategy of a company, and the feature uh, for the internal control should be taking place. There are a few features that specifically stated by the OECD. The first one, the internal control must have the tax strategy. It should be comprehensive enough to cover all the policy, procedure, and process, and also the person who who has ability to uh, not just to build internal control, but to assess and also control. So in order to do that, um, yeah. So the third part of the feature is responsibility. Is as I also mentioned before, the idea is you want the GT want uh, the GT want to make sure that the person built the who build or take a decision is credible enough to know whether or not the calculation of tax is already in the alignment of the our tax law, and also the governance. What is governance? In basically in ideal world, right? So you have to segregate of duties. The one who's prepared, who's the one who review, who the one who take a final decision or final saying of the or certain policy or certain strategy should be defined, and who check those decisions. Those things need to define before. So the output itself already done uh, is correct by itself. So since we're talking about the internal control and also uh, the system, so the internal control that the feature that might help to bridging the trust that from the DGT is uh, the internal control should be well tested to maintain and monitoring. So should be there's an error or feedback, the system itself can accommodate the level of changes, or whether or not if the businesses is taking a new step or new regarding a new businesses. So the internal control, the feature of the internal control should be allow to accommodate that. So that's all the feature that basically to to build a trust to assure the dignity or help the dignity to ensure that the process there is no bad intention from the taxpayer because again uh, if we talk about business, right, one of we one of the important things is they talk about cost benefit analysis, right, from the taxpayer side. So if if cooperative compliance should reduce the amount of compliance costs. So what is compliance cost? It's not just about the amount of money or the tax exposure that taxpayers should be paid, but it's also about the time that taxpayers should spend to try to accommodate or to explain to the DGT, right? So that's why, like my manager say, Mr. Bobby, the DGT itself or the tax authority should know the regarding the industry because it takes time for them to explain, and also it takes quite amount of money to in order the taxpayer to comply as um, as he mentioned also in the fact that matter is many of our clients, if not all of our clients, they want to comply. They just don't know how. So this is one of what we try to do basically, and also in digital side, they when the internal control can be built from the taxpayer side, and they built in real time, of course. So if the taxpayer have questions regarding the implementation of the provision of law in regard to certain regulation, certain MAF, the DGT can explain and the taxpayer can execute. So this mutual relationship might better suited in the long future because as in the first slide, you know the compliance uh, the income from compliance is very major, right? So move out to, I will talk about the implementation from other countries. So the first one is Netherlands. In many articles that I read or the person that I talked to, Netherlands always, and also mentioned by in earlier presentation by Mr. Bobby, Netherlands always being a proactive. So in order to implement the uh, cooperative compliance, every company, every country should set their own goals and and take it to the account the culture of its taxpayer, also the type of industry within those countries, right? So in this context is horizontal monitoring by the Netherlands or the DATCO or the Netherlands Tax and Customs Administration. So established in 2005, this is one of the best and one of the first, right? The idea is they want to make it not just for the large tax payer, but all, for all the taxpayers that who have a willingness to comply. So that's the position that the Netherlands take. So as in right now, the NTCA is satisfied with this program. Why? Because it reduced the amount of complaint or the amount of dispute in regard to, and of course, in this case, so in terms of the NTCA, they can reduce the cost in terms of and selected the resource, right? So the resource is more efficient. And of course, in terms of the taxpayer, they can focus more on the business, which is that's what essentially they should do, not focus on the tax. The tax is the result of the profit that is performed by the company, right? So this is a good, very good example. Another mature country that execute this cooperative compliance is UK, but it's slightly different in terms of goal. The goal is a more cost-effective use of resource and efficient resolution of issues. So basically, the idea is still the same as the benefit you already been explained by Mr. Bobby. But the focus is different. What is the fact of this different goal, right? Different priority. The differences can be seen in the matrix, even though
Kurang.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, let me move to another country. So the third one is Italy. Based on the article that I read in IBFD, Italy is also implemented this cooperative compliance, but Italy is initiated the pilot project is in 2013. Is still relatively new. So in 2015, the Italian government decided to make a model permanent part of tax regime. This is one way how to execute the cooperative compliance. Later on, Mr. Bobby will explain what is our position in terms of our local government and DGT. But there's a benefit in this, both ways. So if we talk about the taxpayer, one of their concern is about the position of cash, right, or cash flow. So because I believe you already know the opportunity cost, right? When they pay certain amount of money, their guarantee or the fast track they get for if they get the cash back, if they resolve an issue, it's better for the company. Why? Because their make the position of cash is able to invest in other things or to pay to other things or to make their position is is greater than the competitor, right? So this Italy still allow this to happen. But since it is relatively new, they still uh, further evaluated need to take place. So move to Russia. Russia is more interesting. Again, it is still relatively new. As I mentioned, one of the hurdle or what we mentioned, one of the hurdle or the challenges is about the culture, right? So Russia is uh, the 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 trust between taxpayer and digital, the gap is too wide. So how they implement if there is a trust issue, right? There's no certainty in terms of taxpayer. There's no and the DGT of course they want to increase their income but not burden the taxpayer. So how they formulated the program. So one way uh, to to execute the cooperative compliance in this context is to formulate and regulate the approach. This can be applied or make an example or exhibit for the developed countries, which maybe is a broad characterization, but there's a gap between the taxpayer and the tax authority. And also the Russian program is quite interesting because they do not cover the transfer pricing issue. The reason is maybe because we have in international tax and transfer pricing part in tax price. So transfer price is so many angle because we talk about sunset and also strategy, the profitability of the company. There's so many qualitative data or the qualitative information. So it is maybe at this stage, it is hard to get to get grasp of the situation as in right now because of the lack of trust. So for the next slide, I think my manager will continue with the next. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Anto. Thank you. I will continue. No, I think we here. Okay, so we almost arrived at the end of our presentation, which what the consultants do. But before that, let's see what is the cooperative tax compliance that already implemented in Indonesia. I believe Pak Luri Sofyan and Pak Fani will maybe have or will explain to you about what has been achieved, but from the perspective of taxpayers, I think what can one that can we see is, but this is a very limited situation. That's why it's not impacting the mass of taxpayers. Is the host-to-host program that is actually implemented between state-owned enterprise. The first one, I think it's Pertamina. So they basically shared the data digitally with the DGT, so the DGT could know what is actually happening at real time. And then and Pertamina, of course, get the benefit because they could ensure that their tax return is actually correct, because DGT from the first stage could actually see whatever happened there. And I think it's being implemented with regard to the e-factur, e-bupot, e-billing, and e-filing system, but we cannot know the details of it because it's very limited to certain taxpayers. First is Pertamina, the next I think is Telkom and also PLN, and also other state-owned enterprises. But because this is very limited, then we cannot say that this is actually a successful cooperative compliance program. This is good. This is a very good program. This is a pilot program. And from the reports that from the OECD, this is exactly right, that in order to create the cooperative compliance program, they have to start to make pilot projects. And I think this is one of the pilot projects that is actually done by the DGT, and we have to appreciate that, of course. But of course, we are actually hoping that this kind of program could be expanded and expanded and expanded more and more. But the Director General of Taxes at the time, Mr. Robert Pakpahan, who is uniquely, actually right now, is a senior advisor at TaxPrime, said that data integration that is done by Pertamina and Telkom at the time is an example of tax compliance based on cooperation between authorities and taxpayer, which is basically a cooperative compliance. In this approach, compliance starts from starting point of the transaction to the end point. So everything is being shared to the DGT from the starting point of transaction to the end point. So wherein taxes are paid in timely and accurate manner. So the tax could be paid in accurate manner. For taxpayers, transparency and openness can reduce the risk for companies, including minimizing the potential for disputes. Because why there have to be dispute at the end of the day? Because at the early stage, they already open everything to the DGT. So this is the statement from the Director General of Taxes at that time, that now is the senior advisor of TaxPrime. But there is another program that I think is more open to the taxpayers, and this is one of my pardon for my personal feelings. I had like emotional relationship with this program, of course, because like almost half of my career was working to support this program. What is this program? This is part of a cooperative tax compliance program. This is what we call an advanced pricing agreement. Advanced pricing agreement is an avenue for taxpayer and also for the tax authority to actually agree on certain point of the value of the transaction. So I will get back to the background of the APA. I believe as this students and lecturers and tax practitioners in tax, I believe you have been familiar with the Article 18, Section 3 of our income tax law, which is our transfer pricing regulation, which states that Director General of Taxes could actually adjust the transaction if he finds that there is a transaction that is not within the arm's length principle. In Indonesia, we call it prinsip kewajaran dan kelaziman usaha. So the affiliated transaction should be done as if the transaction is an independent transaction. So there will be no artificial shifting of profit from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, which makes the tax revenue of certain jurisdiction could be reduced unfairly. So basically, that's the idea. But the problem is, the concept is simple and very clear. But the problem is, it is sometimes quite complicated to do, because the market price is not just readily available out there. So that's why to arrive to the best guess estimation of what independent transaction will do, what they are actually doing is actually use some methods. The first method would be comparing price to price. That's easy, but that's not happen most of the time because the market price is not readily available outside. So the other thing that they can do is they try to test the profit, the gross profit, or maybe the net profit. And if they cannot do that also, then they go to the last method, which is like a profit split or valuation. And practically, the concept is sound, the concept is simple, but the way to practice it is actually very difficult. Not very, but quite challenging. That is, and what is very unique with transfer pricing is even the OECD transfer pricing guidelines has stated explicitly that the transfer pricing is it's very much like the art. So it is understandable that if the tax authority make an analysis and the taxpayer make an analysis, they could arrive at a different conclusion or a different result. So that is why the transfer pricing issue is very, very uncertain for many taxpayers. They think that this pricing is good, but the tax authority could say, this is not right. There must be something that you take into account and everything. So they could say that this transaction is actually not arm's length. And because of that uncertainty, internationally speaking, the countries have agreed to make let's make a platform of agreement to agree on the price of the transaction in advance. So this is what advanced pricing agreement is. It's also embedded in our income tax law, but it's also mandated by almost tax treaties that we have with other countries. The advanced pricing agreement could be happen in two ways. So the taxpayer could unilaterally agree with the tax authority, with the DGT, and agree, okay, for this transaction, the value is this value is this. So if in the future you find that I comply to this agreement, you don't have to make any more adjustments. So it's very easy. It's certainty in advance, something that is wanted by the taxpayers. Or they can also, to ensure that there is no double taxation, if the transaction is 10 here, so it should be also 10 in the other countries or in the partner country, then the advanced pricing agreement could also facilitate the agreement between competent authorities. For example, the tax authority of Indonesia, that is represented by the Director of International Taxation, will make an agreement with the competent authority of, for example, the NTA, the National Tax Agency of Japan, or maybe the NTCA of the Netherlands, or maybe the IRS of the United States, to agree on, okay, this is the transaction, this is a affiliated transaction, this is how we evaluate whether the transaction is arm's length. And if the transaction is within these boundaries, then the transaction is treated as arm's length, so there will be no more adjustment made to that transaction. So of course, the advantage of this program, there is an advanced legal and business certainty. Then the taxpayer could avoid long process of disputes. They will have lower compliance costs. Why? Because the advanced pricing agreement process is done only once, but it could cover 5 years forward, and then possibly they could cover 5 years backward, or we call it rollback. So basically you get 10 years of certainty with only one process. So basically it's lower compliance cost. And then the process is more friendly. Why? Because this is not an investigation. This is not an audit. The one who actually make the analysis is not the auditor, but the analyst who is equipped with international tax and transfer pricing knowledge, so they could assist the program based on the knowledge that they have. And then also, of course, the other benefit would be minimizing double taxation. Why? Because if the transaction is priced 10 here, then in the other countries, it should be priced 10. So the costs and the profit will be consistent between in Indonesia and also in other country. So there will be no double taxation, or if there is, it will be in a very minimum level of double taxation. And then what is good from the APA is once agreed, they can be renewed. So you already have 5 years forward APA and 5 years backward APA. And if it's already, if it's almost expired, then you can ask for a renewal. The process is most of the time easier and more flexible. And then you will get another 5 years. So it's actually really, it leads to a lower compliance cost. So why we bring this advanced pricing agreement program as a good example of cooperative compliance, because this is actually what cooperative compliance could actually offer. So this is part of bigger cooperative compliance concept. APA is only part of it, like the tax control framework. APA is only part of it, but it could save taxpayer from unnecessary headache because of transfer pricing audits and transfer pricing adjustment. So we arrive at the conclusion part. So upon reflection of the objective of cooperative compliance, which is to ensure quality of compliance through timely payment with the correct amount of tax that we should be paid, to ensure that cooperative compliance could be successfully implemented, we have to encourage a transition from a working practice, from a working situation between tax administration, tax consultants, tax intermediaries, and also taxpayers that have been for a very long of time characterized by mistrust and repressive actions between them. In order to make it successful, it is essential there are like realization to all parties that first, for the taxpayers, they have to have their mindset that they want to comply, because comply is actually the way to minimize the risk. Because if you do comply, then there will be no penalties, there will be no further adjustment. If you do comply, you will be safe for a very long disputes and drama. And then for the tax administration, if there is a certain level of trust, they could actually manage the resources. I always believe that DGT will always have limited resources, because come on, you have to be realistic. There are hundreds of millions of people in Indonesia. There are millions and millions of companies in Indonesia. How can a 40,000 people at the DGT could actually supervise all of them? No, it's impossible. So what they can do is actually make a map. This is what actually DGT already did by establishing the CRM. I think Pak Luri Sofian already explained or will explain about this in elaborative manner. So the compliance, the CRM actually a program that DGT make to map the taxpayer, high risk and low risk taxpayer, and then the DGT will focus on the high risk taxpayer. That's basically it. So that is actually very important. In the grand scale of things, DGT has to allocate resources very efficiently, because they will always have limited resources. So they have to allocate resources efficiently. That's why they have to build. So it's like a choice. If you are the taxpayers that want to comply, this is the program. This is the APA. This is the host-to-host program. This is for you. And then if you are a taxpayers with low risk, because you are, for example, UMKM, then this is a program for you, which is like the final tax rate or any other things. This is for you. This is for low risk. And then the rest of it would be the non-comply taxpayers or high-risk taxpayers. This is the area that the DGT then could continue to concentrate to supervise on. So they will make the allocation of resources efficiently. This is very important to build trust with the taxpayers that deserve the trust, that wanted the trust, and then allocate the resources for the law enforcement for the taxpayers who don't. So basically, that is the conclusion. And then this is like the cream of the cream. What the consultants can do practically? Well, I think I told you the story about in the earlier stage of my presentation that I met some consultants that actually changed my mind. I don't want to call their name or call their companies, because that will be a little bit subjective. But what I get from them is actually openness and transparency. So as a consultant, they already practice openness and transparency. They know that the consultant is taking an intermediary position. They are paid by the taxpayer, of course, but their job is not to always serve every interest of the taxpayer. They have to put their position right at the center, even if they are paid by the taxpayer, but they have to facilitate both parties to communicate efficiently and effectively. So as the bridge to the communication, this is what actually happened to me when I met this consultant, and this is something that I practice right now. They actually help the taxpayers to provide every data and document that is needed. And if the taxpayer cannot do that, they even help to digging deeper to find that information and then give it to the tax authority. And then at the end of on the tax authority side, the tax consultant is taking the position of like, but what if in a friendly manner. So they establish the relationship with the tax authority with a good conduct and in good faith. So the tax authority at a certain level could actually trust them. And that, by my personal experience, is actually helping the case. So I had this case, and then it's resolved very easily, very quickly, because of this openness of this tax consultant. So actually, this is not a $1 million question. No. So what the consultant should do to encourage the tax compliance? What the consultant need to do? It's not that they have to do something specific or something very extraordinary, but they have to get back to their ethic code, because in the tax consultant ethic code, it is already explicitly stated that while they're working, they have to have like moral consideration. They have to be fair. They have to be correct, and then they have to treat everything objectively. And then they have to work with a professional manner under a correct amount of knowledge that they need. So basically that is. So there is no extraordinary things that should be done by the tax consultant. Basically, maybe this seems like very cliche, but this is what actually right. This is under my personal experience. I actually have taken a position of tax authority, and I know which consultants that I could work with. So that's why right now I work with the tax consultant that could actually bridge that vision to my day-to-day practice. So I think that's it that we can divulge to you. I think it's better if you could communicate and discuss in the Q&A session. So I give back the light to the Bu Nurlita.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Yunianto. Okay, guys, if you want to ask, you can click raise hand, or you can type in the question X menu. Okay. Okay, we have some more. Okay, the first Naura Gibrani. Naura Gibrani.
Okay, is my voice audible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, First of all, I want to say thank you for the insightful session. And my question is, as has been explained about the application of CTC from other countries, which one do you think is suitable for use in Indonesia, considering that the level of public trust regarding taxes is still very lacking? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nora. Who, Mr. Bobby or Mr. Union first?
Anto, do you want to answer or I will answer this question?
Please
Okay.
answer.
Okay, so actually the thing is, initially we need more pilot projects. As I said, the pilot project that is done now is very limited to certain state-owned enterprises. It shows that DGT also have like limitation to actually open this program to many other companies. So with regard to host-to-host program, for example, this is actually good. So the taxpayer basically could go to the taxpayer and go to the tax authority and then provide their data, and then, okay, I think this is correct, and I believe you also see that this is correct. Then there will be no further drama at the end of the day. So the first, I don't think that the host-to-host will be open for public, like to all publics, but of course the pilot projects should be open to more large taxpayers for the first, and then so they can manage their taxes, and also because we have this intention to encourage and boost investment, the foreign direct investment. I think it would be a good idea to also start the comparative compliance program, like the host-to-host program that is done with Pertamina, with the new foreign investors, for example, investors who want to invest in new capital city of Nusantara, for example. So it will be a very good turning point for them. Okay, I could believe that the DGT will do according to the books and according to the laws, and there is open and transparency. I think that's also good. But other than that, other than creating new programs, I think one of the most important thing is actually making what is already exists to be better. What is it? This is the APA. The APA program right now is only accessed by small numbers of companies. If the DGT could open this, open and promote this program to more and more taxpayers, I think they will get the benefit to many taxpayers. So I do encourage the DGT to promote this as we do, because the Tax Prime also do promote the APA, because it's actually a very good, in terms of value of money, it's a very good price, because this is only one time, and then it could cover that 10 years. It's very efficient, something like that.
Okay. Is there any feedback from Naura?
All clear. Thank you, Mr. Bobby.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You. Okay, next, Tamara Nur. Please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Norleta, for the opportunity. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tamara Nur Adinda, and I'm a student from Tax Study Program. So, as you mentioned earlier during your presentation, that building trust is a very important thing to increase cooperative compliance. But it is very difficult, especially in Indonesia after the previous viral case. So what should be done from the taxpayer's perspective and the government, especially in how to create an environment of openness and trust? Yeah, thank you.
Well, that is actually a very difficult question, because it's easier to set than to be done. Well, for me, because I was working at the tax office before I joined Tax Prime, the taxpayers that I really value most and I appreciate at the highest level is the taxpayer who actually open direct and clear communication. So they don't like very difficult to contact. They are not like hiding in high walls or everything, but they are really open. They are easy to communicate with. They are easy to be contacted with, and also they work with the consultants with the same and with the consistent value and the consistent methodology. So not the consultant that actually want to attack everything, that want to say that everything that the DGT does is wrong, but actually could actually facilitate communication that is effective and efficient. So I think that is the first thing that needs to be established. If you already have good communication with the DGT and with the tax officer, then you can actually discuss with them with many things. So it doesn't have to be adversary. It doesn't have to be DGT is the enemy of the taxpayer. No, they are actually our partners, and that cannot be changed. That is undeniable. That is what I personally believe. So while working as the consultant, that is the value that I hold the most, because if you make the DGT an enemy, maybe in dispute cases in tax court, maybe that could work. You can just attack them or make compelling arguments. That's even okay. But your behavior and attitude outside the tax court, your attitude and behavior when communicating with the DGT is actually important, because at the end of the day, they are all human. Why do you think they want to talk with people who discuss with such a degrading manner? No one. So they are professionals. They are human. So let's take them as partner. So they are our partners, and open a good communication. That is a start. And if your company, for example, if you're working at the company that wants to comply, then ensure as much as possible you try to comply. I know exactly that. Well, there's no compliance perfection. It's just difficult. Every single thing, maybe you miss this, you miss that, it's okay. But as long as that's a mistake, it's okay. But if you actually created the mistake, for example, optimizing a loophole to actually avoid taxes, that will actually bring a bad signal to the tax authority, and the damage, if that happens, the damage has been done, then the communication will be very difficult. And I don't recommend that kind of approach. I think that's what my insight about that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me add on that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, what I can say, it is a chicken and egg situation, right? So in order to move, what's done is done. We cannot change the past, but in order to we move forward, right? So basically, that's why our position is try to communicate, because the fact that we practically day-to-day operation is not that both taxpayer don't want to pay tax, or the DGT don't want to understand the taxpayer, but they just don't know how to ask the right question. So our job is just to communicate it clearly that this is the industry of our tax payer. And of course, maybe the implementation of the regulation is not wrong. It's not totally correct, but there's no intention. We can prove that's why we try to make a statement or based on our understanding and the position, because it's all about the communication. It's all about perspective, right? So we turns out that there's many like Mr. Bobby that really try to encourage the taxpayer to do the right thing. And there's a lot of taxpayer that, hey, I want to make investment in Indonesia. So what should we do? What is the what do we need to do to build, for example, accounting system, ERP, to accommodate a certain type of pricing issue, for example, because it is a multinational company, right? So those things need to consider. And I want to add, in regard to the CTC, why the pilot program is in the tax, a large tax payer. It is because you need an investment. So in one of the characterize is you have to be a mature enough company that you are willing and able, most importantly, to execute the CTC program. So I just want to add on that. Hopefully, it can help you to answer
Great.
questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anto.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Widianto. Is there any feedback, Tamara?
There are no feedbacks. It's all clear. Thank you, Mr. Wabi and Mr. Yunianto.
Okay, thank you, Tamara.
Welcome.
And then there is Zaki Ali.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Nurlita Sukma. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nur Zaki Ali Madani. I'm from Student Tax Program. Okay, I want to ask some question. Earlier, it was mentioned about taxes for investors. Has this regulation for investors been effective? And if you are willing, would you like to share your experience so far with investors on tax issues? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Of course, there has been many facilities and incentive for investors, and our firm has facilitated many companies to do so. Including doing the master list of everything to actually save taxes for quite much. And but for the regulation, that incentive for the new capital city, it's already issued, but it hasn't, of course, it hasn't been implemented yet because the capital city is not ready yet, right? So it's not there yet. But for the other things, the tax holiday, the tax incentive, there is already there, and we have assisted many firms to actually get that incentive, and actually it works well. It worked well mostly, and I think the latest thing that we need to share is we have helped a very great group of automotive industries in their latest incentive and facility process. Two great groups of automotive industries, and we are very proud of it, and we are very proud of the result of the work.
Okay, Mr. Yunianto, you want to add something?
No, I think that's sufficient. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Bobi. Is there any feedback from Nur Zaki?
There's no feedback, Ms. Nurlita Sukma. Thank you for the answer, Mr. Bobi Safro.
Good.
Okay,
Thanks, Nur
thank
Zaki.
you. Okay, thank you. Next, there's Attila. Attila, you're in there.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to apologize that I can't activate my camera because of the device problem. My question is quite simple. There are many business organizations in Indonesia with various different characteristics. So how to understand the risk and tax strategies of these diverse companies and then incorporate them into a single appropriate policy regarding cooperative compliance? Thank you.
Great, this is actually a very good question. Let me say that as a spoiler, so there cannot be a single regulation for all. It's not possible. So they could only provide regulation in generics, but then for certain industries, there will be special treatment. For example, for construction taxes, there's a final taxes. Why? Because it's difficult for them to do the normal taxes like everybody is. And then for like the shipping companies, there is also a special treatment, and also for the UMKM, so there is also like special low final taxes treatment, which could also help. So there will be one regular rule that is intended to generically apply, but then there will be if needed. For example, that I already told you, the construction industries, the OMKM, the SMEs or any other examples, they could actually be made to accommodate that differences. But I will add to that understanding businesses actually, but it is still important. Why? If it's not for generic rule making, it also will be very useful for the technical stage. I will give you an example. So as an account representative at the tax office, I was being tasked to supervise, like, let's say, like 100 taxpayers. They are the biggest ones in that area, the strategic ones in that area. So in order to understand where the risk is, I have to know what their business is. So what I did was making a site visit to their office, to their plants, to their locations, to their factories. By looking directly to whatever it is happening and then making a report, then back at the office, I could map where the risk is. This is a steel industry. So the supplier is actually bukan pengusaha kena pajak. Gitu ya. So there must be some certain of risk with regard to the value-added taxes. So that's only the example. So for example, oh yeah, this company is actually use services from foreign country. But then I found in the site visit that the foreign employees actually coming here for a long time. Okay, so there is the permanent establishment issues. So there is a risk that you could only find if you make a direct communication, contact, and site visit to your taxpayers. That's why at the DGT, there is a program that is called Know Your Taxpayers. So the account representatives are encouraged to go to the taxpayers during the visits and understanding their businesses. And it also happened for the taxpayers itself and for the consultants. For example, Tax Prime, in preparing the transfer pricing documentation, before we can actually make a good and proper transfer pricing documentation, our requirement is to the client is, please give us access to do the site visit. Why? Because only when looking by ourselves, we can know exactly what is happening. We can know exactly what the process is. We can know exactly where the risk is. So we can provide explanation, the correct amount of information that should be provided in the transfer pricing documentation. And trust me, seeing is believing. If you don't actually do the site visit, it may be happen that the information could be misinterpreted, and the misinterpreted information could lead to misunderstanding and wrong information. So it would lead to a wrong amount of tax that should be paid. So the way to understand is actually make a direct contact and do site visit if possible. The information is being compiled. DGT is compiling that information and then providing feedback for the policymakers to understand that if they make the policy, this could happen, this could happen. But of course, there is no single rule for all in totality, because it will be very difficult, because every business has their different characteristics and unique styles.
Okay, Attila, is there any feedback?
All clear, Mrs. Thank you for all the answer.
Okay,
You're welcome.
thank you. And I think it's Maharani Fitria Aziza. Please your question.
Okay. Thank you for opportunity, Mr. Sukma. Good afternoon, everyone from GMT Plus 7. Let me introduce myself. My name is Marani from Taxation Study Program. So I want to ask, every business has a different character. You think there is a need for regulation that match the character of the business? Thank you.
Wow. Consistent with my answer previously, it will be like impossible to match all the characteristics, because basically there will be a few businesses that have very unique characteristic that they need to be taken care with special regulation, but mostly there will be a generic regulation that actually apply to all. So there will be no single regulation. There will be some adjustments, but it will be difficult to imagine. For example, there will be a special regulation for construction. There will be special relation for services, special taxation for manufacturing, something like that. It could be well. Well, I will tell you a story about how we make regulation back at the DGT. So I was involved in some regulation making in the DGT, and the process was painfully long. So it's our own discussion back at the DGT is very long. We're taking much consideration, and then we go with the other ministry, for example, the Kemenkumham and also the Kementerian Sekretariat Negara. And then at the time, the discussion will be more difficult, not difficult, but they challenge us because they want to make sure that the regulation is sound, the regulation is fair, and the regulation objective. Because as the Minister of Finance, who is responsible for taxation, of course, there's certain level of tendency that we want to collect taxes, right? So they are actually challenging us to ensure that the regulation is objective, but it takes so long. The fastest regulation that I think we could make, the fastest law, is actually the Harmonization of Tax Regulation Act. That is very fast because the process is very smooth, and then it has been agreed in the strategic level. So it's very smooth. But other than that, every single regulation is painfully taking so a long time. That is why it will be really difficult to make many regulations, and it will be hell for taxpayers to have so many regulations they cannot comprehend, even if we are there to help them. But that's not the idea. That's not making difficult and then the consultants get the job. No, that's not it. But we have to have this regulation that is objective for all. But of course, we have to accommodate some specific industries that simply cannot make it. That's what I said, like the construction, the shipping companies, and other examples that is actually has been treated specifically. So I think that's my response.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bobi.
Can I add on that?
Okay.
Yeah. So you already hear regarding the the perspective of the regulation, right? But you have to know also the premise or the underlying assumption of how the company acts. So basically, the company, the idea is you want to be unique, not just a unique industry. You want to be unique within those industry. Why? Because you have to build a competitive position, right? So in order to win your market share compared to your competitor. So the idea, if that's why it is different from the regulation side. They want to, all the company to be the same. So that's why we have to recognize those point of view, because the company, if you talk about the porter, right, there's a two generic strategy, which is cost differentiation and uniqueness. Whether the position of the strategy of the company, whether it is to build the branding or etc. But the idea, they want to be different from its of their company. They want to offer value that is not yet offered in those certain market. So, but in the perspective of the tax or the regulator, all the company within those certain industry should be acting the same. So that's the reason why there's discrepancy. That's I mean, I will go back to our consultant. That's why the intention is correct, right? The perspective of DUT is not wrong, and the perspective of the company is not wrong, because they want to make money, right? So, but since there is a gap, we need the consultant job is communicated. Look, yes, this industry acting a certain way, but this company model business model is not like that. Why? Because they want to create a commercial value. They want to make profitable. Like, for example, if Apple is not doing what Apple do, the market share is still on Microsoft, right? So they have to break through the position of the market. But if the perspective, you have to acting like a Microsoft, the 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 company might not profitable as it is the Apple, what I mean. So that's the basic differences, all in the good intention in their own perspective. Of course, in DUT, tax is built our country, right? One of biggest contribution. So there's a purpose of tax, but there is also DGT have to understand the position of the company also. I think uh, I hope it will further explain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yunianta. Is there any feedback from Maharani?
I think enough is all clear. Thank you, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Yunianto.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. I think we don't have any question. Okay. Allow me for I would some point and correct me if I wrong. So, officer, sorry, its officer must understanding the experience and vice versa. Second, the more simple administration, the more compliance taxpayers. Right, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Yunianta?
Yeah, I think yes, that's perfectly it.
Actually, I startling when you say APA process in Netherlands just two stage.
Yes, exactly.
Is there authority tax in Netherlands is really trust their taxpayers or?
Yes, that's actually my exact question to them, Bu Nurlita, at that time. So that is my direct question to them. How could you really trust your taxpayer? I mean, that's simply
It,
at that time I said that is simply impossible in my country.
in
I said,
Indonesia.
in Indonesia. I'm sorry I have to say that, but that is true. And that's and it basically say that because we have no reason to distrust them. She has no reason to do that, because if they do something that is violating the agreement, they actually hiding something that is important. We already have the clause in the agreement that this is the assumption that we are working with. If the assumption is not being complied to, then of course they will do like the law enforcement thing to the taxpayer. So but if they already came to you voluntarily opening their data, what do you need more? What more do you need? So they said that they just trust them, fully trust them. But if something then found out that they do something hanky panky, then they will actually launch the law enforcement program. But that I don't think that the Netherlands companies want to do that. That's really a foolish option.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Yunianto
Bu
for
Nurita, is our time is already run out, or there still be some time?
uh, there is some
Some time
timeline.
now.
Okay.
Is possible if my colleague here play a video from our company just to introduce our company as for the friends here?
Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Anto, please help. No, because I know we are facing a bright students of University Brawijaya, so I think it's just a very good opportunity to introduce our firm. And if later you want to connect with us, just call Bu Nurlita, and Bu Nurlita maybe will help you. So Anto, please. But after that, we will just leave. Bu Nurlita, thank you very much for your help. Thank you very much, everybody, for the opportunity. I hope we can see you in a very brighter opportunity later. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Yunianto.
Let me prepare first.
I'm sorry, sir. I think the sound is not the sir sound.
Sorry.
The sound
The
is not
sound is not.
connected, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay, let me.
I think we can do something like that.
How about right now?
Maybe I will share the screen. I will try. Okay, so this. I hope this works.
Banyak orang berpikir kalau kerja sebagai konsultan pajak itu ngebosenin, repetitif, dan nggak menarik. Tapi nyatanya, enggak loh. Setiap hari selalu ada tantangan baru buat saya. Saya Arga. Saya sebagai senior associate di Tax Prime, usia saya 28 tahun, saya sudah berkeluarga dan memiliki 1 anak. Saya sudah 4 tahun bekerja di Tax Prime. Saya merasakan perkembangan dalam diri saya secara personal, keahlian, dan juga jenjang karir. Seperti apa bekerja di Tax Prime? Penasaran? Bekerja di Tax Prime adalah bekerja dengan tim, di mana kita tidak akan sendirian dalam menyelesaikan pekerjaan. Tax Prime menggunakan Tax Prime Teamwork System, di mana sistem ini memudahkan saya dalam memonitor tim dan juga memberikan feedback kepada tim. Sistem ini dapat membuat kita untuk bekerja secara remote dan juga tetap menjaga komunikasi dengan baik. Sebagai konsultan, kami diajarkan untuk memahami kebutuhan klien yang berbeda-beda. Untuk itu, sebelum kami melaksanakan tugas, kami harus memastikan proses bisnis klien dan juga menggali informasi yang cukup.
Para leaders di Tax Prime secara rutin mengadakan pertemuan bulanan untuk sharing dan diskusi dalam berbagai topik. Saya sangat senang dapat membagi ilmu pengetahuan kepada karyawan Tax Prime dan menjadikan ilmu tersebut bermanfaat.
Kami percaya bahwa kepercayaan yang kami miliki saat ini dibangun dari keberhasilan komunikasi dan kerjasama tim dalam menyelesaikan proyek sesuai yang diharapkan.
Hai, saya Hana, supervisor di Tax Prime, dan saya sudah menjadi bagian dari Tax Prime selama 5 tahun. Bagi saya, hal yang berbeda dari Tax Prime adalah Tax Prime memiliki banyak senior advisor yang memiliki jam terbang yang tinggi di bidang perpajakan.
Menjadi top leader di usia muda bukan hal yang mustahil untuk dicapai, karena kamu tidak perlu menunggu posisi kosong untuk naik.
Sebagian besar leader Tax Prime pernah bekerja di Direktorat Jenderal Pajak. Ilmu baru bagi kami dalam memahami bagaimana perspektif DJP dan juga bagaimana networking dengan DJP yang mungkin tidak saya dapatkan di tempat yang lain. Tidak hanya ilmu pajak, tapi kami juga diajarkan bagaimana menjadi leader yang baik, bagaimana berkomunikasi yang baik, dan juga kami diberikan kepercayaan yang luas untuk ikut serta dalam menangani sengketa. Hal tersebut menjadi ilmu bagi kami.
Sebagai senior advisor Tax Prime, saya merasa bangga dan apresiasi kepada tenaga muda yang bekerja di Tax Prime. Mereka dengan dedikasi yang tinggi dan penuh kompetensi memberikan masukan-masukan yang hebat pada Tax Prime.
Di Tax Prime sendiri, kami tidak merasakan adanya batasan jabatan untuk dapat berkomunikasi dengan leader maupun dengan founder di Tax Prime. Sehingga komunikasi di Tax Prime itu sangat tidak kaku. Tax Prime selalu mendukung karyawannya untuk selalu berkembang. Tax Prime memberikan pelatihan-pelatihan baik di dalam negeri maupun di luar negeri. Saya sendiri pernah dapat beasiswa loh.
Saya merasa mudah di Tax Prime, tanpa gap dalam berkomunikasi dan berbagi ilmu.
Hai, saya Sasa. Beginilah cara kami berdiskusi di kantor. Karena suasana Tax Prime yang sangat nyaman, kami tidak melulu berdiskusi di ruang rapat. Kami juga bisa berdiskusi di ruang lain tanpa mengurangi kualitas diskusi kami. Mulai dari cara berkomunikasi, cara bekerja, dan lingkungannya. Semuanya membantu membangun positive vibes antar karyawan. Jadinya nggak bikin stres deh.
Di Tax Prime, kesempatan untuk mendapatkan pengalaman menjadi kuasa wajib pajak terbuka luas untuk semua karyawan. Jadi, semua memiliki kesempatan untuk berkontribusi langsung.
Tax Prime berupaya untuk terus mengembangkan passion setiap karyawannya dan menjadikan setiap karyawannya spesialis di bidangnya. Dukungan dan arahan dari para leader membantu setiap karyawan untuk dapat mencapai goal karyawan dengan lebih cepat.
Di Tax Prime, kami selalu membuka peluang tiap karyawan untuk terus mengeksplor kreativitasnya, sehingga potensi dari karyawan tersebut dapat berkembang secara maksimal, terutama pada bidang perpajakan.
Individu atau SDM yang berkualitas merupakan faktor kunci Indonesia menjadi negara maju di 2045. Karena SDM adalah aset yang paling berharga, sebagaimana di Tax Prime. Apakah kamu menginginkan kebebasan untuk mengekspresikan kreativitas, berkembang dan menjadi leader tanpa kendala usia, kesempatan berdiskusi langsung dengan ahli di bidangnya, bekerja seimbang dengan kehidupan pribadi? Be part of us, because we are Tax Prime.
Kami telah berkembang bersama dengan Tax Prime. Jadi, apa kamu siap?
Kami tunggu kamu bergabung di Tax Prime.
Okay, thank you very much everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you Bu Nurlita.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Bobby. Thank you, Mr. Yunianto.
Thank you.
I think I will return this session to Miss Jessica.
Thank you, Mrs. Nurlita, for guiding this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we already received another great insight from Mr. Bobby Savero and Mr. Yunianto Kurniawan, moderated by Mrs. Nurlita Sukma. Next, we will hand over the certificate to our presenter, firstly to Mr. Bobby Savero. Thank you so much, Mr. Bobby Savero, for the very insightful presentation. We really enjoy about your presentation and the new insight you provided. Okay, sir, I will guide to the documentation of this session. To the IT team, please to take the documentation of this session. I will count in 3, 2, 1. Once again, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, Mr. Bobby Savero. Next, we will hand over the certificate to our next presenter, to Mr. Yunianto Kurniawan. Thank you so much, Mr. Yunianto, for the outstanding presentation. We're very impressed with the new insight we received. Okay, sir, I will guide the documentation of this session. To the IT team, please to take the documentation. I will count in 3, 2, 1. Once again, 3, 2, 1. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Yunianto. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of the entire 3-in-1 taxation study program that has been held for the past 3 days. During the past 3 days, we have listened to and discussed about enhancing cooperative tax compliance with prominent speakers. We would like to express our gratitude to all speakers who have shared their incredible knowledge. In addition, we would also like to thank the enthusiasm of all participants who have been actively listening and discussing during the past 3 days. We hope that the knowledge we have gained during this program can be utilized to the best of our ability to support our country, Indonesia. Before closing the day, I would like to remind our participants to fill in the attendance link provided by the committee in the Zoom. Although this 3-in-1 event has ended in this session, due to the enthusiasm of participants during this event, we also invited you to International Taxation Seminar 2023 held by Hima Pajak via UB, tomorrow, September 14, 2023. Of course, the seminar will invite another incredible international speakers. This event is open to public and you can register through the link that has been provided by the committee. In the end, on behalf of the committee, I would like to apologize for any mistake that may have occurred during the event. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good day and see you at the International Taxation Seminar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Makasih untuk semua panitia.
Fill me out with your smile, like the sunshine brings the light. Fill me out with a flame, I will let you win this game. Take me out when I'm down, 'cause with you I'm safe and sound. 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 I'm safe and take me out when I'm down, 'cause with you I'm safe and sound. 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 I'm safe and sound.